Have you ever had that nagging gut feeling, like something in your world just doesn't sit right? It's like this faint hum at the back of your mind, but you keep pushing it aside because facing it feels too much like opening Pandora's box. That's been my reality for months now. My name's Jason, and up until recently, I thought I had it all: a loving wife, a solid job, and a cozy home in the suburbs. Turns out, I was living in a bubble of blissful ignorance. Megan and I have been married for 7 years. She's always been this vibrant, magnetic person, the kind of woman who lights up a room just by walking in. Me? I'm the grounded one. I handle the bills, plan our trips, and make sure life stays on track. We were a team, or so I believed. The cracks started showing in the smallest of ways. Megan seemed distant, like her thoughts were always somewhere else. Her phone became a permanent fixture in her hand, always flipped face down when I entered the room. We used to share laughs over silly memes, but now I'd catch her grinning at her screen in a way that made me feel like an outsider. Whenever I asked her about it, she'd brush me off with a casual, "just work stuff, babe." And I'd accept it because, deep down, I wanted to trust her. Last Friday, I was supposed to work late. Megan knew that, and when I mentioned it, her response caught me off guard. She sounded almost relieved. That should have been a red flag, but I let it slide. I finished early and thought I'd surprise her, grab dinner and make a night of it. When I pulled into the driveway, her car was gone. At first, I told myself it was nothing. Maybe she ran out to the store or went to see her friend Hannah. But something about it didn't feel right. I called her phone, it went straight to voicemail. I sent a text. No answer. As the minutes turned into hours, my worry twisted into something darker, an unsettling mix of fear and suspicion. I couldn't shake the sense that something was deeply wrong. That's when I crossed a line I never thought I would. I opened her laptop. I know, it's a betrayal of trust, and I felt nauseous just typing in her password. Ironically, it was still our wedding date. But I needed answers. What I found shattered me. There was a group chat with her friends. At first, it seemed harmless, banter about some party they'd gone to the weekend before. A party I hadn't even known existed. They were raving about how Megan was the center of attention, even though she was 6 months pregnant. Pregnant with our first child. Our child. And then I saw it, his name. Tyler was such a riot last night, one of her friends had written. Couldn't keep his hands off Megan. OMG. My stomach flipped. Tyler? Who the hell was Tyler? I kept scrolling, my hands trembling. The messages grew worse, suggestive comments, teasing her about being so bold, warnings to keep things discreet or Jason might catch on. My heart pounded as the pieces fell into place. The late nights. The secrecy. The way she changed. Everything suddenly made a horrific kind of sense. I slammed the laptop shut, my thoughts spiraling. This couldn't be real. It had to be some terrible misunderstanding. But deep down, I knew the truth. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I'd built a life with, wasn't who I believed her to be. When Megan finally came home that night, she looked so carefree. That smile on her face, that smug little laugh, it was like she was coming off the high of a perfect evening, completely oblivious to the storm waiting for her. She didn't even notice me sitting there in the dark. She kicked off her shoes, stretched, and laughed softly, the kind of laugh people have when they've had the time of their lives. My blood was practically simmering. "Where were you?" I asked, keeping my voice steady, though the cold edge in it was unmistakable. Megan froze mid-reach for her purse, her hand hovering as if caught in the act. She turned to face me slowly, the smile slipping right off her face the second our eyes met. "Jason, you scared me," she said, trying to brush it off. "I told you, I was out with Hannah." "No, you didn't." I straightened up, folding my arms across my chest. "You never mentioned Hannah, and your phone's been dead silent, straight to voicemail all night. Her lips pressed into a thin, stubborn line. My phone died. What's with the interrogation? I told you where I was. Hannah, huh? I let the name hang there for a beat, watching her closely. Funny thing. Hannah's been out of town. I know because I saw her post about it this morning. Visiting her parents. Her expression hardened, just for a second. But she was quick to recover. All right, fine, she huffed. I wasn't with Hannah. I didn't think I had to report every single thing I do. I went out. Needed some fresh air. Fresh air. I repeated, raising my voice just a notch. Megan, you're 6 months pregnant. What kind of fresh air has you disappearing for hours, unreachable, and lying to my face? She rolled her eyes, a habit she'd picked up recently, and one that was starting to drive me insane. You're overreacting. It's the hormones. I just needed space, Jason. I snapped. Did Tyler give you that space? The words came out before I could stop them. The color drained from her face instantly. She blinked, fast, like she was trying to reset. Trying to act like she hadn't just heard what I said. Who's Tyler? She asked, her voice shaky, feigning confusion. Don't, I said, stepping closer. Don't insult me by playing dumb. I saw the messages, Megan. The party. Your friends laughing about you and Tyler. Who is he? And what exactly have you been doing? Her jaw tensed. For a moment, I thought she might crack, let everything spill out. But instead, she threw up walls. You went through my stuff. Her voice rose. Are you serious right now? That's a violation, Jason. How dare you dig around in my things and then accuse me of cheating? While I'm pregnant, no less. You've lost your damn mind. No, I growled, my voice trembling from trying to hold back the anger. You're the one who's lost it. Lying to me. Sneaking around. Letting some guy get too close while carrying my child. And now you're flipping this on me, trying to make me feel like I'm the crazy one. Her eyes narrowed. You're ridiculous. Do you even hear yourself? You're paranoid, obsessing over some stupid jokes from my friends. Jesus, Jason. This is insane. I shook my head. I'm not paranoid, Megan. I'm done. Done pretending nothing's wrong. Done ignoring the signs. I took a breath, letting the words land like a hammer. Tomorrow, we're getting a DNA test. Her eyes went wide, first with shock, then with anger that lit up her face. A DNA test? Are you out of your mind? No, Megan. I'm not. I kept my voice firm. If this baby's mine, I deserve to know. And if it's not, well, I guess Tyler can take over from here. Her mouth opened, then shut again, like she wanted to fight, to deny it, but couldn't seem to find the right words. Suddenly, she burst into tears, loud, dramatic sobs that echoed through the room. I can't believe you do this to me, she gasped between breaths. To us. I've given you everything, Jason. And this is how you repay me? You think I'd betray you like that while I'm pregnant? What kind of man says this to his wife? It was a solid performance, Oscar-worthy, honestly, but I wasn't buying the act. Not this time. Cry all you want, Megan. We're getting that test. She shoved past me, storming down the hall and slamming the bedroom door hard enough to rattle the walls. I stood there in the quiet, my heart still racing, my thoughts spinning in every direction. I wanted to believe her, to convince myself I was wrong, that I'd somehow misread the whole thing. But the evidence was stacked too high. The cracks in our marriage were too deep to ignore. That night, I lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling, wondering how the hell we'd ended up here. The woman I thought I knew, the life we were building, felt like nothing more than a fragile illusion. Morning came, and the house felt heavier than ever. Megan dressed in silence. I didn't say a word. When I grabbed the car keys and told her, "Let's go," she followed without putting up a fight. The clinic was cold and sterile, the kind of place where the truth doesn't hide, and lies unravel. We sat there in silence, the weight of everything pressing down like a lead blanket. When the nurse finally called us back, Megan shot me a quick glance, her face hard, twisted with a mix of anger and stubborn defiance. This was it. The moment everything could change. The test itself was simple, a swab across the inside of my cheek, another for Megan. The paperwork felt heavier than it should, my hand trembling slightly as I signed. But the wait in that clinic? It was unbearable. We sat in silence, listening as the nurse walked us through the process, but her words barely registered. Neither of us said a thing when we left. There wasn't any point. We both knew nothing we could say now would matter until those results came in. The drive home was quiet. Megan kept her gaze locked on the window, staring out like she could will herself somewhere else. Her expression stayed cold, unreadable. I focused on the road, gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles stood out in stark white. My thoughts wouldn't stop racing, circling back, again and again, to how I'd let this drag on for so long. Every late night. Every excuse she'd brushed off with a casual laugh. Every secret smile she shared with her friends. It all kept playing in my head, each memory darker than the last. When we got home, Megan headed straight for the bedroom, shutting the door behind her without a word. I stood there in the hallway, staring at that closed door like it could somehow give me answers. 6 months ago, we were picking out cribs and bickering over which shade of blue to paint the nursery. Now I wasn't sure if we'd even make it to the birth. I didn't go after her. Instead, I grabbed a beer from the fridge and sank into the couch, staring blankly at the dark TV screen. The house felt too quiet, like it was holding its breath, waiting for whatever came next. By morning, Megan's anger had faded into something colder. Detached. She looked at me like she was daring me to crack first. "When do the results come in?" she asked, barely glancing up from her coffee. Her tone was casual, almost bored. "A few days," I replied, not bothering to look at her. "Maybe a week." "Good," she muttered, setting the mug down harder than necessary. "I'm tired of you acting like the villain in this paranoid fantasy you've made up." I said nothing. Didn't trust myself to. The anger was heavy, sitting in my chest like a boulder, making it hard to breathe. The next few days blurred together, spent checking my email every hour, hoping for an answer, while I tried to drown myself in work and whatever mindless show was on. But no matter how much I tried to distract myself, I couldn't stop thinking about that baby. If it wasn't mine, then what? Would I pack up and leave? Could I stay, knowing she betrayed me in the most brutal way? And if it was mine, could I ever forgive her for putting me through this? The waiting was its own kind of torture. Every time Megan spoke, it grated on my nerves. Every word felt fake, every movement rehearsed. She carried on as if nothing had shifted between us. Going through her routines, pretending normalcy, but I saw the cracks. Her glances were shorter. Her phone never left her side. One night, I caught her in the kitchen, hunched over her laptop. She didn't hear me come in, and I lingered there a moment, watching as she quickly minimized whatever she was looking at the second she sensed me. "What are you doing?" I asked, leaning in the doorway, my voice sharp. "Nothing," she replied too fast, snapping the screen shut. "Emails. Work stuff." "Right," I said, the disbelief thick in my voice. She didn't argue. Just brushed past me, heading upstairs without looking back. Her perfume lingered, but instead of the comfort it used to bring, it just felt like another reminder of the space growing between us. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I shut my eyes, all I saw was her, laughing at some party I wasn't invited to. And somewhere in the background, there was always a shadow of a man I'd never met. Tyler. I wanted to confront her. To drag the truth out, piece by piece, until there was nothing left to hide. But I knew how that would go. She'd deny it. Flip the script. Turn me into the villain. I wasn't letting that happen again. Finally, after what felt like days stretching into years, the email came through. Your DNA test results are ready. My heart stalled. My hands trembled as I opened it, eyes scanning down the lines of text until I found the only part that mattered. 0% probability of paternity. The words blurred as I stared at them, my brain scrambling to make sense of it. The baby wasn't mine. My child. Our child. Wasn't mine. The weight of every emotion I'd been holding back came crashing down all at once. Anger. Betrayal. Heartbreak. Relief. I sat there, letting it wash over me in waves I couldn't fight off. I sat there for what felt like an eternity, my eyes glued to those cold, unfeeling words. The baby wasn't mine. That should have been the end of the road, right? Pack my things. Walk out the door. Let her deal with the wreckage she created. But the longer I sat there, the more that thought twisted into something darker. Walking away felt too easy. She didn't deserve easy. She'd lied to me. Betrayed me. Tore apart the life I thought we were building, brick by brick. No, she needed to feel this, really feel it. She needed to understand the weight of what she'd done. I wasn't just going to leave. I was going to bring the whole damn thing crashing down. The words 0% probability of paternity looped endlessly in my head. I couldn't unsee them, couldn't escape the weight pressing down on me. But as the minutes ticked by, the dull ache shifted into something sharper, rage. I wasn't just going to quietly walk away. She was going to pay. For every lie. Every fake smile. Every stolen piece of my life. But I couldn't explode. Not yet. This wasn't about venting or screaming in anger. If I wanted this to hurt, really hurt, I had to be smart. So, I said nothing. I didn't tell Megan about the results. Instead, I watched. Every glance, every shift in her tone, every time she picked up her phone, I paid attention. I used to think Megan wore her heart on her sleeve. Now I saw her for what she truly was, a master manipulator. It was in the subtle way she checked her messages when she thought I wasn't paying attention. The way she'd suddenly become affectionate, kisses on the cheek, hands lingering a little longer, whenever the tension between us thickened. She thought she was winning. She had no idea I held the ace. The first thing I did was make a plan. I reached out to a lawyer, Chloe, recommended by an old buddy who'd barely crawled out of his own nasty divorce. Chloe didn't sugarcoat anything. You need evidence, she said flatly. Proof of infidelity, deception, whatever you can dig up. The more you have, the better your leverage. I leaned back in the chair, jaw tight. Don't worry. I'll get the proof. And I did. I started with her phone. It wasn't easy, she treated that thing like a vault, always glued to her hand. But one night, she left it charging in the kitchen while she showered. My pulse hammered as I picked it up, praying the passcode hadn't changed. It hadn't. Still our anniversary. I shouldn't have been surprised. The messages were buried, hidden beneath harmless work emails and group chats with her friends. But I found them. Tyler. His name popped up over and over. The messages weren't graphic. She wasn't that careless. But the flirting? The inside jokes? The plans to meet up? Crystal clear. The final nail in the coffin? A photo. Megan, in a sleek black dress I'd never laid eyes on, captioned. Can't wait to see you tonight. Don't keep me waiting, winking face. My chest tightened. I took screenshots of everything and emailed them to myself. But I wasn't finished. The next day, while Megan was out running errands, I set up cameras. Tiny, discreet ones, hidden in the living room, bedroom, by the front door. If she was bold enough to bring him into my house, I wanted it documented. I also hired a private investigator, one Chloe highly recommended. He assured me he'd dig up everything I needed. So, I waited. It didn't take long. 2 days later, I got a text from the PI. Oakwood Hotel. Room 217. Photos attached. My stomach sank as I opened the images. There she was, hand in hand with Tyler, walking into the hotel lobby. She looked happy. Light. Like she didn't have a single care in the world. I didn't cry. Didn't break anything. I just stared at the picture, feeling something cold and hard settle deep inside me. This wasn't about love anymore. This was about justice. When Megan walked through the door that night, she kissed my cheek like nothing had happened. "How was work?" she asked, her voice soft, familiar, fake. "Busy," I said, forcing a smile. "Yours?" "Same old," she replied, heading to the kitchen. I watched her closely, the photos flashing in my mind. How long had this been going on? How many nights had she walked through this door after being with him, pretending everything was fine? I clenched my fists. Not for much longer, Megan. Over the next few days, I pieced together the last of what I needed: bank statements with sketchy withdrawals, hotel charges, everything the PI handed over. It wasn't just evidence. It was ammunition. By the end of that week, I had everything I needed, a pile of evidence so damning that even Megan's smoothest lies wouldn't be enough to save her. But I didn't confront her. Not yet. I wanted this to hit her like a freight train, swift, brutal, and impossible to recover from. So, I kept the mask on, playing the role of the clueless husband. I waited, patient as ever. And then the perfect moment arrived. One morning over coffee, Megan casually mentioned she'd be meeting up with her friends after work. I knew exactly what that meant. Later that afternoon, the PI confirmed it: another cozy dinner with Tyler, this time at a restaurant downtown. I didn't call. I didn't text. I just pulled on a clean shirt, grabbed the folder thick with proof, and headed out the door. I wasn't heading to the restaurant. I was heading to Tyler's house. By the time I got home that evening, Megan was sprawled on the couch, lazily scrolling through her phone like it was any other night. She barely looked up when I walked in, like the weight of the entire mess she'd created hadn't even registered. For a moment, I just stood there and watched her, wondering how I'd been so blind to her selfishness for so long. "Megan," I said, keeping my voice steady, but cold enough to chill the air between us. "We need to talk." She let out an exaggerated sigh, dropping her phone onto the coffee table. "Oh, what now, Jason? Are we still stuck on that stupid DNA test? I thought we were done with all that." I stepped closer and placed the manila envelope squarely in front of her. "No," I replied, taking a seat across from her. "We're not done with anything. Open it." Her eyes narrowed as she hesitated, almost like she could already sense what was inside. "What is this?" she asked, suspicion laced in her voice. "Proof," I said, leaning back and folding my arms. Her fingers trembled slightly as she peeled the envelope open, pulling out the stack of documents. The color drained from her face as she flipped through each page, starting with the DNA results, moving on to the screenshots of her texts with Tyler, and landing on the hotel receipts that left no room for doubt. By the time she reached the end, her hands were visibly shaking. "Anything you want to say?" I asked, watching her carefully. She looked up at me, her expression shifting between shock and anger. "You went through my stuff," she hissed, her voice shaking. You violated my privacy. I laughed, a bitter, humorless sound that even surprised me. Don't even try it, Megan. You've been lying to me for months, cheating on me while carrying his child, and you're going to cry about privacy? I leaned forward, my voice dropping lower. Give me a break. She shot up from the couch, clutching the papers to her chest like they could somehow protect her. Jason, it's not what it looks like. I can explain. Explain. I cut her off, the bitterness bleeding through every word. Explain what, exactly? That you've been screwing Tyler behind my back. That you've been funneling my money into his nights with you. Tears started pooling in her eyes, but I didn't flinch. Not this time. I didn't mean for any of this to happen, she whispered, her voice cracking. It got out of hand. No, I said, rising to meet her gaze. You didn't slip into this, Megan. You chose it, every lie, every moment you spent sneaking around. And now, you're going to live with the fallout. Her tears quickly hardened into something sharper, anger flaring up like a defense mechanism. You can't just throw me out, Jason. I'm pregnant. Not with my kid, I said flatly. You can start packing, or I'll have Chloe serve you with an eviction notice by the end of the week. Your choice. Megan stared at me, her mouth hanging open like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. You're heartless, she spat. After everything we've been through, this is how you handle it. Just tossing me aside. I met her glare with one of my own. No, Megan. You tossed us aside the moment you brought him into this. I took a step back, nodding toward the stairs. Go be with Tyler. I'm done. I walked out of the room, leaving her standing there, clutching the evidence of her betrayal. For the first time in months, I felt like I could finally breathe again. The anger? Gone. The heartbreak? Faded. I wasn't weighed down by it anymore. I was free. Megan didn't storm out that night. Instead, she hung around for 2 more days, slamming cabinets, avoiding eye contact, and giving me the cold shoulder like I was the one who ruined everything. I didn't take the bait. I'd said everything I needed to say. Whatever came next was on her. By the 3rd day, I heard the sound of zippers and the heavy clunk of suitcases coming down the stairs. I stood by the window, arms crossed, watching as she packed up her car in angry, jerky movements. I didn't wave. Didn't say goodbye. She drove off without looking back, but I wasn't expecting her to. Tyler could have her now. She didn't say goodbye when she left. I hadn't expected her to. All I felt as her car disappeared down the street was relief, a heavy, quiet kind that settled deep in my chest. At first, the silence in the house was suffocating. 7 years of shared memories left behind nothing but empty walls and a strange, hollow stillness. But sadness? That wasn't part of it anymore. I was ready to start fresh. The first thing I did was strip the house of every trace of her. The photos, the souvenirs, the baby things, every reminder of the life we were supposed to build together but never truly did. I packed it all into boxes and left them on the porch. If she wanted them, she could take them. But they weren't staying in my home a second longer. Once the house was cleared, I reached out to the friends I'd drifted from during the marriage. At first, I wasn't sure how to explain it all. How do you even start to unpack something like that? Turns out, I didn't have to. They just got it. We grabbed beers, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I could just be me. They didn't look at me like I was the guy whose wife had cheated. I was just Jason, their friend. The next step. Work. I buried myself in it. Late nights, extra projects, anything to keep my hands busy and my head clear. And you know what? It helped. Landing a tough deal or knocking out a big project brought back a sense of pride I hadn't felt in years. It was a reminder that I was good at something, that I could still build a life worth being proud of, even if parts of it had crumbled. One afternoon, I got the call. "The divorce papers are ready," Chloe said. Her voice was steady, businesslike. "She's not contesting anything. We'll finalize it in a month." That was all I needed to hear. Megan had made her decisions, and now I was making mine. I signed the papers that same night, ending our marriage with nothing more than a flick of the pen. By the time everything was finalized, the house finally felt like my space again. I repainted the walls, rearranged the furniture, and swapped out the couch for something new, something without the weight of old memories. Piece by piece, I rebuilt the life I wanted. I didn't expect to meet anyone new so soon. But life's funny that way. A few months after Megan left, I ran into someone at a friend's barbecue. Her name was Emma. She was easy to talk to, sharp, funny, and kind in a way that didn't feel forced. We got to chatting, and before I knew it, the sun had set, and the party had thinned out. It wasn't some grand, love-at-first-sight moment. I wasn't ready for that. But there was something there, a quiet spark. A reminder that not every connection is built on lies. We started seeing each other casually, grabbing coffee, hiking, nothing too heavy. Emma never pushed. She didn't pry or ask about Megan unless I brought it up. She gave me space to breathe, to figure things out at my own pace. And I'll always be grateful for that. Looking back, I see now that Megan's betrayal was a wake-up call I didn't know I needed. I'd been living in denial, convincing myself that cracks in the foundation were just part of the process. Her lies shattered the illusion. But that same collapse gave me a clean slate, a chance to find out who I was without her. I don't know where things with Emma will go. But I know this much. I'm not settling for less than I deserve again. I'm stronger now. Wiser. And for the first time in a long time, I'm happy. If I could give anyone dealing with this kind of heartache one piece of advice, it's this. Trust your gut. Don't brush off the warning signs. And when someone shows you their true colors, believe them. Life's too short to spend it on people who don't value you. Megan and Tyler. They can have each other. Me. I'm moving forward, one step at a time. And this time, it's on my terms.